Hello and welcome back. Mrs. Saunders here. Today we're talking about classifying triangles. We're going to classify triangles by their angles, by their sides, and then we're going to solve some triangles using what we know about those classifications. Now, triangles can be classified in two ways, by their angles and by their sides. If we classify triangles by their angles, we have four choices: an acute triangle, an equiangular triangle, a right triangle, and an obtuse triangle. An acute triangle has three acute angles. So if you see all these here, all these angles are less than 90 degrees, and it has to be all three of them. The equiangular triangle has three congruent angles. They're all 60 degrees. The right triangle has one right angle, there it is, 90 degrees, and an obtuse triangle has one obtuse angle, one angle that's greater than 90 degrees. So let's practice a bit. We're going to classify each triangle as acute, obtuse, equiangular, or right. So what about this one? This is a right triangle because we've got that 90 degrees right there. This one is obtuse. It looks like a right triangle, but see right there, it's 92. That's still an obtuse angle because it's just over 90 degrees. This is an equiangular triangle. Look, all these are 60 degrees. They're all the same. And then finally, what do you think this one is? This is an acute triangle because all of the angles within that triangle are less than 90 degrees. Next is we can classify triangles by sides. This time we have three options. We have an equilateral triangle, an isosceles triangle, and a scalene triangle. Now, an equilateral triangle has three congruent sides, very similar to an equiangular triangle, which has three congruent angles. An isosceles triangle has at least two congruent sides. See, we've marked those here. And a scalene triangle has no congruent sides. All the sides are a different length. So let's practice that now. All right, this one is equilateral. All the sides are the same. They're all 18. This one is scalene. All the sides have a different length. This one, see these two markings right here that say these two sides are congruent. So that makes that an isosceles triangle. And finally, what do you think this one is? Another scalene triangle. Now we're going to use all of this information to actually solve some problems. This one says, find the value of x if triangle TUV is an isosceles triangle. We know it's an isosceles triangle because we've got these two sides that are marked congruent. And if we know that those two sides are congruent, we can set those two sides equal to each other and solve for x. So we can subtract 3x from both sides and then add 3 to both sides. Divide by 2 and we get x equals 3. Let's try another one. Find the length of each side if triangle RST is an equilateral triangle. All right, now this one, if it's equilateral, that means all the sides are the same. So if all the sides are the same and you need to solve for x, you can just pick two sides. It doesn't matter which two sides you pick. It'll all turn out the same in the end. So I decided to go with 2x plus 2 equals 3x. Then I can subtract 2x from both sides, and I get that x equals 2. Now I didn't want to know what x was. We want the length of each side. So I'm going to have to take that value of x and plug it back in. So if I take length RT here, 5 times, this was x, and I'm going to plug in a 2 instead. 5 times 2 minus 4 is 6. Now, if it's an equilateral triangle, all the sides should be 6, but let's plug in x to each of the sides just to double check. So 2 times 2 plus 2, that's also 6 for RS, and ST, 3 times x, or 3 times 2, is also 6. Now, this one looks complicated. It says classify triangle GJI by its sides. There is so much going on there. So first thing we need to do is find GJI, and then we're going to have to pick from this menu of sides. So there we go. GJI, there's that triangle. And if you look at the triangle that I've highlighted, look at this right here, we've got this guy and this guy. Those are congruent sides, which makes this an isosceles triangle. Let's try another one. EDC by sides and angles. So we're going to have our menu of sides and our menu of angle classifications. And then we need to find EDC. There it is. So it looks like as far as sides go, see these guys don't match. And there's no marking here to indicate that it's congruent to any of the other sides. So all the sides are different. That's a scalene triangle. As far as classification by angles, we've got this right angle right here. So that makes it a right triangle. So that's it for classifying triangles by angles and by sides. Thanks for being here.